knocking. George and his young teenage son Peter lived together in a small house on the outskirts of the town. The lot their house sat on was large and overgrown with tall hedges blocking the house from the street. One day, George left on an overnight business trip but took Peter's phone charger by mistake. As a result, neither Peter nor his father George could charge their phones. Both phones were fully charged at first, but George was delayed on his way home, and by midnight on the second day, both phones were dead. It was just after this that Peter heard a knock on the front door. Peter was a sensible boy and knew not to open the door to strangers. Instead, he looked out of his bedroom window onto the drive to see who was there. Peter saw his father's car in the drive, but he could not see the front door from his room. He went downstairs and looked through the peephole in the door to see who was there. Peter could see his father on the other side of the door. Looking back at him, he reached up to open the door. But something stopped him. "Dad," Peter called out, "why are you knocking on the door? Did you forget your keys?" Peter waited, but there was no reply. Just another knock on the door. "Dad," Peter called out again, "why don't you just open the door and come in?" But again, there was no reply. Instead, there was just a steady, rhythmic knocking on the door, which began to get faster and faster. George was knocking constantly on the door, waiting for Peter to open up, when suddenly he stopped, and there was no sound at all. Peter looked through the peephole again. His dad was still there, so he decided to open up. When Peter opened the door, he discovered his father's head was taped to the door in front of the peephole, and a trail of bloody footprints leading down the drive. Serial killer or the murderer on the loose. Manish was lying in bed one evening when he noticed there were lots of sirens in the streets outside. There was a helicopter flying around overhead and the sounds of barking dogs and shouting people. He looked out his window and saw a great deal of police activity. So he went online to discover what was going on. Serial killer escapes. said the headlines. As Manish read further, he discovered a crazed killer had broken loose and that he was believed to be in Manish's neighborhood. But Manish wasn't too worried. As the night wore on, the noise wound down and he went to bed. Suddenly, Manish was startled awake. He thought he had heard a sound. He listened carefully and was just about to go back to sleep when he heard it again. This time he was sure someone was trying to get in his front door. He looked down the hallway, terrified, not knowing what to do. The only way out of his room without going into the hallway was through the window. He couldn't climb out. Could he? Manish thought. His mind was made up as he saw the door wobble in its frame as someone threw their entire weight against it. Without another moment of hesitation, Manish leapt out of his window and ran into his yard. He paused to look over his shoulder, just in time to see the light goes on in his bedroom and a team of police officers pile in. Manish was amazed and relieved at the same time until he felt a hand clamp tight over his mouth and the cold steel of a serial killer's knife against his throat.